When Pikmin 3 Deluxe was announced, one of the most heavily advertised features for the game were the new side stories. After years, we finally had new Pikmin content in Pikmin 3 Deluxe, and we get to play as the iconic duo from Pikmin 2. This feature was also heavily hyped up by the fans, and when Pikmin 3 Deluxe released, nobody cared about it. I swear, it was getting hyped up, and then the day Pikmin 3 Deluxe came out, everyone acted like it wasn't even in the game at all. Nobody really talked about it, they all focused on other parts of the Deluxe version. Now that the game is almost 4 years old, I still have seen barely anyone bring up this mode, which is really strange. This was probably intended to be the biggest part of the Deluxe version, and yet it gets less discussion than quite a lot more minor changes made to Pikmin 3. This lack of interest made me interested in this mode because I myself had kind of forgotten about it, and I want to see if there's anything interesting here that everyone was just been overlooking all this time. Before we delve into these side stories, be sure to subscribe for high quality Pikmin videos weekly. There are two stories featured in the side stories mode, Olimar's Assignment and Olimar's Comeback. Olimar's Assignment is the first one you unlock after rescuing Captain Charlie from the distant tundra. This one is pretty interesting because most side modes in any Pikmin game are played separately from the main story, yet here the game actually wants you to tackle this one in between segments of the campaign. The game has a button in the area you select that brings you to this mode, and it even lights up when it's most recommended that you play it. It's meant to try and fill in the gaps of what Olimar and Louie were doing on the planet before the Copatites got there, which is why they want you playing it in between these story. Now this is the shortest and least interesting of the two side stories, but still pretty good. It consists of 4 levels, each being comprised of the main areas, the Garden of Hope, Tropical Wilds, Twilight River, and Distant Tundra. The gameplay here is basically the same as a collect treasure levels in mission mode. You have to get enough treasures to earn a medal in a certain amount of time, and if you get all of them, you get a platinum medal. The levels themselves are all pretty solid, and they're well designed and fun to play through, and it's fun to multitask in them as well. One complaint I have for them is that they all start where you usually land in story mode, which doesn't really help it make it stand out. This is a pretty minor complaint, but the remix version of the map in mission mode had pretty interesting layouts because they altered starting points, so I kinda wish they did it here. This is pretty excusable though because the next side story does have very different starting layouts. Now because both modes use these same maps as the original game, you might have been able to connect the pieces and might have already figured out that this mode is basically just filler. That's not to imply no effort went into these side stories at all, but it's pretty apparent that this was a relatively low effort addition to the game, probably for advertising. I'm kinda conflicted on this. On one hand, it would have been nice to get new 3D model maps instead of just recycling them, but on the other hand, Nintendo probably would not go through that much effort or time to do that for the port anyways. So while it would have been nice to get some more original content, there was probably a fat chance of that happening anyways. I mean, they would have charged full price for a Wii U port anyways if this was in the game or not, so I guess its addition is harmless. Anyways, I said I wasn't implying that no effort went into this at all, and the clearest example of this is the music. The entirety of this mode has original compositions and they are great. I'll be playing them in the background of this video so you can hear them. They're probably some of my favorite songs come out of this franchise. Another good thing is we get to see our boys again, Olimar and Louie, with frequent lines of dialogue from the President. I like the Copite trio, but nothing can top these lads. The President is still just as good as he was in Pikmin 2, this guy refers to Pikmin as employees. Anyways, the first campaign of these side stories is pretty solid, and I enjoyed my pretty short time with it. The ending of this mode shows Olimar in the Formidable Oak, and it cuts off right before disaster strikes, then the game basically tells you to go back to the story. Another thing that was recycled is these cutscenes. They weren't made for this mode, you originally accessed them by collecting the Wii U exclusive secret memos. If you collected all of them throughout the story mode, you can then input the code they spelled out onto Nintendo's website and watch one of these cutscenes. Just one of them, not all of them. This is probably a good case of recycling as it makes all of them easily accessible, and they probably should have just been in the game from the start. After you beat the main campaign, you unlock the second side story, Olimar's Comeback, and this is the real meat and potatoes. There are over twice the levels from the previous one at 10 total, and the missions themselves are much more varied. It takes place after Pikmin 3 and has a different plot. You might remember seeing the Octane ship completely destroyed in the background of the Quagmire-Clops arena. Well, the President was not very happy about Olimar and Louie leaving it behind, so he immediately sends them back to fix it. Olimar also rides the pod from Hey Pikmin, which is one of the few times Nintendo acknowledges that game's existence. It also shows that shot from the credits of Pikmin 3, which was definitely meant to be a teaser for Pikmin 4 back in 2013, but there were some pretty well known delays with that game, so they just patched up here and made it relate to this side mode. This is the first level of Olimar's Comeback, and here the objective is to collect 100 Pikmin. The Pikmin don't count until you have plucked them, and you don't have to collect everything on the map. The best strategy here is to divide the two types between the two captains. Also, this isn't even a valid complaint, it's more of a weird observation, but like, who is giving out these polkas for collecting Pikmin? It's the same for the time bonuses as well, you get like the Pikmin 2 debt repaid from it. Is there like a rich bullywurb in the area who was so enamored by her performance he had to dump his whole allowance on it? I sure hope someone got fired for that blunder. Anyways, this level is really simple and pretty easy as well, but it was fun. The goal of this level is to kill every single enemy, just like the battle enemy levels in mission mode. For some reason, the starting area for this one level has 2 camera angles that are exclusive to this one small area in this one small mode. It's basically just Pikmin 4's camera for like a really small section of the map. I don't know why they did this, but it's pretty cool. This bulb goes down easily to these rock Pikmin, a little too easily than normal. Some of you might already know this, but the side modes in Pikmin 3 Deluxe are locked to the easiest difficulty. This was slightly annoying for most of these side modes, but this one definitely doesn't have a reason to do this. Both the first side story and mission mode can be played before the story, so they have some excuse, and Bingo Bell is usually played with a friend, and it's likely they won't be that experienced with Pikmin, so that also has an excuse. Olimar's comeback is played after being the main game, and is post-game content. It has no reason to be forced onto the extremely easy difficulty. I don't really care that much for this in mission mode because the main challenge there was optimizing your time to get the platinum medal, which is more of a test of your multitasking and strategizing than it is combat, and it's one of the more challenging and fun things in Pikmin 3. You'd think that would also apply here, but these are extremely generous time limits. For some of these levels I was playing extremely sloppily and had to keep backtracking, yet I would still have several minutes left over. Now this is for getting a platinum medal, which is basically an optional achievement which is supposed to be a very difficult thing to get, and you do not have to get it to beat this stage. It's really only there for people that want to challenge themselves, so I'm not sure why they made the time limits for them so generous here. It just leads to the mode you can access from the start being much more difficult than the one you get after beating the game, which is kinda backwards. It also kills a lot of replayability for these stages as well, considering you can get the best rank in one attempt easily. Anyways, back to the level. It's a pretty standard defeat enemies romp. Start off building up your army, and then you face off against all of the formidable foes. The good thing about these side modes in Pikmin 3 is we get to see more of these several enemies that went underused in the main campaign, like Bulborbs and the calcified Clushblat. The enemies here also drop items like Ultra Spicy Spray and Bomb Rocks, which you have to utilize effectively. Pretty solid level. Land, Sea and Sky, those are also the same people that brought you the hit song November. You have to utilize the abilities of Blue, Winged and Red Pikmin, and it's another defeat enemies mission. I was playing pretty poorly here in several sections where I was just dawdling around, but I still finished with almost 4 minutes remaining. You have to try multitask killing enemies with building a bridge to the Winged Onion. Also, the Hermit Karamat are the only enemy in this game where the iconic dodge whistle comes in handy. It ends with a boss fight with the terrifying and ferocious Bug-Eyed Karamat, another solid level. This level introduces a new clear condition where we have to get the ship part collected as fast and as safely as possible. This level grinds my gears for a very specific reason. The map and level design for this level is implying that you have multiple paths to choose from, and now you have to try strategically pick one, but it's complete boswallops. No matter what route you clear up, the path the Pikmin go in is predetermined, and if you assume they go in the safe and clear path you made for them, then tough. Why even have the level design have all these different routes if some of them are just completely pointless in the first place? Kinda ruined the whole vibe of the level for me, but it was still pretty okay. This is another defeat enemies level, and it's probably the most forgettable level of the bunch. The main gimmick is you have to swap some Pikmin and then multitask for a bit until one side runs out of places to go, and then you just defeat some enemies. It doesn't really do anything that unique, not even anything small, so I just kinda forgot about it after playing it. Wasn't really a bad level, just kinda forgettable. This is a collect treasures level, and the gimmick is that it takes place in the Twilight River, but there is no river! I do not like how it utilizes the entrance to the Scorn Maestro Arena because you have to collect bridge pieces to access it, and you will probably sweep the map by the time it's ready. And then when you get there, you just have this large section of downtime of waiting for the Pikmin to bring down all 50 nuggets. I also forgot how easy Bulborbs are in Pikmin 3, no matter what difficulty you're on. You can just instantly stun them by hitting them in the eyes. This guy got killed by 9 Pikmin. Also, this level is a very good example of how easy the platinum medals are to get in this mode, because I thought I was finished, but I forgot a pile of gold, and had to scuttle back to pick it up with Leaf Pikmin, and I still had basically 4 minutes left on the clock. I wouldn't have even gotten bronze if I did something like that in mission mode. This level is also pretty forgettable. This is one of the few memorable levels in this mode, and it's not really because of the actual level itself, it's more of what's going on around the level. It's said that Olimar and Louie got into a fight after the last day, and it was about Louie's excessive hunger. Olimar makes remarks about how he has to find Louie again, referencing Pikmin 2, and how he regrets raising his voice at him. Louie just talked about how he was hungry while I was playing the level, so not much going on with him after the fight, I see. The goal here is to find Louie and reunite him with Olimar. The level itself is just pretty okay, and has a neat concept of trying to intentionally sneak by enemies and not fighting them, but it really isn't fleshed out. The level just kinda ends before it really gets to begin, and was over in around 4.5 minutes for me. It's one of the clear instances where not modeling a unique map hurt the overall level, as this one really didn't get a fair chance. The nice little dialogue and story that came into this level carried it, and it was one of the few that I actually remembered before replaying them for this video. It's just kind of a shame that the level itself is so short. Big Fruit Carnival is another pretty forgettable one. It's a collect treasures mission and basically the same location as that forgettable battle enemies level. It's around this point that I realized that these levels are really disconnected from each other. It's a side story, but there really isn't much of a story here for any of these stages. It never explains why we are doing most of these. Our goal is to collect ship parts and fix the ship, so why are we just here in this place we have already been collecting fruits? It makes it feel less like an adventure and more like 10 disconnected missions, which probably contributes to most of these levels being pretty forgettable. The difficulty is also being pretty flat for all these levels as well, no noticeable increases or decreases, and it was also around this point that this mode kind of started overstaying its welcome, and I was starting to get a bit tired of it. I wasn't bored of it, but I wasn't having that much fun after a while either. They've only used the distant tundra once for that ship part mission, and spoiler alert, it's not coming back, and they probably should have used that area here because we already seen the Garden of Hope 3 times in this one mode at this point, and the layout here is really similar to that other mission. The only really unique thing in this mission is it has those iconic Pikmin tree haystacks, which I forgot existed. This is the second ship part mission, and it's also the second last level of the story mode. Also, this is an absolute irrelevant nitpick, but the names of the ship part missions are so boring compared to the other missions. It does the exact same thing as the last one, where it looks like there are several paths, but there really isn't. It's worse here because it really did seem like there are multiple paths, and there are in this section of this game in story mode, so why they just go on a set path? There's an electric gate that you have absolutely no reason to break down. Why is it there if I can't utilize it? It really feels like they designed these levels with multiple paths in mind, and they just forgot to program the Pikmin to take the multiple paths. Another okay level, but the pathing thing was still pretty annoying. We have reached the 10th and final mission for this mode. To start off, you have to face off against 3 elemental enemies. I suffered my biggest Dandori crisis in the whole mode here. After that, you have to face off against the 2 exclusive boss fights of this mode. The Baldy Longlegs but yellow, and then the Shaggy Longlegs but yellow, and he has big feet. There's no indication that there would be any different or new enemies in this mode, so I guess these are fine. The Shaggy Longlegs looks completely hideous with those large feet, but it's not a bad thing. These guys don't have an official name, and I don't remember any fan names for them, so they can just stay being unloved and forgotten. They are implied to be clones made by the Plasm Wraith because of their golden designs, which is pretty neat. After you beat them, you have to slowly wait for them to carry the parts back, and then you are finished. One final tidbit is that for speedruns of this level that use the in-game timer, they continuously walk in and out of the loading zones while collecting the parts, because it slightly freezes the timer, allowing for a better time. Kind of defeats the whole point of a speedrun, but it's definitely an obtuse strategy. After you beat it, you get a short ending cutscene to cap things off. The ship is repaired, we get a few shots of the Pikmin, and they fly off, and then you just get plopped right back into the main menu. The cutscene is kind of scuffed. It's really low resolution compared to every other cinematic in the game, and there's weird frame dips despite it being pre-rendered, which is a bit distracting. Anyways, after fully playing through the mode, I quickly found out why nobody really talks about it. I use the word solid a lot to describe the levels, and it kind of fits the whole mode itself. There really isn't much discussion to be had about it. It doesn't do anything that unique or exceptionally well, but it doesn't really do anything that bad either. There were no levels I hated playing through or disliked, but there were none that I absolutely loved either. The biggest problem is it just kinda gets outclassed by mission mode in every single way, and the reusage of content just makes it not stand out by default. They probably should have recycled maps from Bingo Bell just to make it a bit more unique. The story itself was basically non-existent for Olimar's assignment as well. It's supposed to be us rebuilding our ship, but half these levels are just us doing random things for no rhyme or reason with no relation to the ship at all. Feels like 10 disjointed levels instead of a continuous story. Overall though, it's a pretty okay addition to the game, and I did enjoy it even if it's not as good as mission mode or the main campaign. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, or the big-footed yellow shaggy longlegs will show up to your house at 3 AM.